looks. Can you let me know if they come through okay? So we should have a picture of Alan, one of our volunteers, in a high-vis vest on screen.
Nothing at the moment.
Ooh. That one.
Yeah, it's just starting to think about it. Yep, brilliant.
Perfect, we've got them. Let's make sure the slides move. There we go. We're on second. We've got a high-vis volunteer on there.
Yep, got that one.
Excellent. So I've worked out my technology. We've got there. Like Amy said at the start, we've been doing this for a couple of years now with online meetings, and then you throw in a different system and keep it exciting. So NHS and Care volunteer responders, it has been around since pandemic times, and NHS England at very fast pace needed to launch support essentially for people who were clinically extremely vulnerable and were being asked to shield and stay at home, but also in support of vaccination, whether at mass vaccination sites or at community pharmacies. And they needed to mobilise huge numbers of volunteers at very short notice. Fast forward into COVID recovery times and post-pandemic world, NHS England recognised that there was still need for interventions that support the seasonal vaccination programmes for COVID vaccination in autumn and in spring for the boosters, but also there were still people who are isolated, lonely, and those determinants against their health. So people are presenting at their GP or going up to A&E because of the impact of loneliness and social isolation, or not having access to the very basic pieces of support that we might provide to our family or our neighbours. So the programme exists to help plug some of those gaps and to sit and complement traditional place-based volunteering. Organisations out there doing really great stuff in your local authority. And we're going to talk about flexible or micro volunteering opportunities that you could do alongside other volunteering roles, alongside taking care of your family or friends, or alongside paid work if that's something that you're doing as well. So we're going to have a talk about what our volunteers do and how they do it. And then at the end of the slides, we're going to talk about, if you wanted some more information, how you can make those first steps into applying to be a volunteer responder. So in terms of a bit of context, 2.6 million tasks delivered over the course of the programme, 380,000 shifts at vaccination centres, and a support to 211,000 individuals. I still get a bit wobbly when I look at these numbers. A lot of my background before I worked for the Royal Voluntary Service was based in volunteer centres here in Derbyshire, where I live, and prior to that over at Volunteer Centre Manchester. And to talk about this sense of scale on a national programme still makes me go, oh my goodness, how many wonderful things we've done to support communities up and down the country. So who is it we're supporting? Who needs our help? So we provide companionship and encouragement to improve well-being and reduce loneliness. And that predominantly is through a series of phone calls from volunteers to people referred by professionals. And professionals referring into this programme range from GPs and social prescribers, people planning to discharge people from hospital, and all those fantastic voluntary and community sector organisations that meet people week in and week out in places in their local community. We support with shopping and prescription delivery through our community response activity. And there is some piloted areas where we see people accompanying others to get connected into their community, to attend a lunch club, go out for a walk, venture out for that cup of tea and grow their independence. We directly support the NHS through the delivery of medicines or equipment that support patients being discharged from hospital or being cared for on a virtual ward or hospital at home, depending on which part of the country you're in. Stewards still helping out at vaccination clinics, and that stepping up now ready for the October autumn booster for COVID vaccinations and flu this year. And in certain parts of the country, ambulance services have asked us to help provide crew welfare. So a cup of tea and a friendly chat, depending on who's listening, a Kit Kat or a piece of fruit, whilst people are waiting to hand over their patients at A&E. All of the volunteering is picked up via the Good Sam app. So one of the things you need to take part in the programme is a mobile smartphone, and you need to be able to look at the app on there to be able to pick up a shift. There is loads of help and guidance, everything from how to download an app to how to use it and set up your profile. There's guidance on webinars like we're doing today, and loads of videos and guidance notes on the website, and I'll circulate those afterwards. They're micro tasks, so it is as easy as picking up a task to do sat on your settee on a Sunday afternoon and thinking, well, actually, I'm a bit lonely and I've not spoken to anybody all weekend. I can go on the app, I can pick up a check-in and chat call, make a telephone call to support an individual, but also brighten my day by having that friendly chat and that listening ear as well. 7 days a week, and we ask volunteers to complete their tasks between 9 in the morning and 8 o'clock at night. And that just falls in line with our support teams who are there if you've got a wobble or a safeguarding concern, you need to speak to somebody. We want to make sure that support is there for you. We've got a lone working function through the Good Sam app, which means you can log that you are lone working. So you're on your own with the person you're supporting, perhaps on that walk, or dropping their shopping to their house if you've pre-arranged that they might need you to pop their fish fingers and their ice cream into their freezer for them. We want you to tell us that you're lone working, or you're on your own with a client, and then log back out when you've finished. So there's that layer of support for you. This is a little screen grab of what the app looks like on your mobile phone. So you can go in there. This would scroll up and down this list of tasks that you could pick and choose what you want to do. You'd give it a swipe to the side, and that would allow you to show details to find out a little bit more, accept or decline the activity, and mark it as complete once you've done it. So we know that person's had support, and their GP or their nurse prescriber who has referred them can see that they've had that support as well. It's quite a big programme, and we're just going to fly through to make sure we've got time for questions today. So I'm going to whiz through this, but there's loads of information on the website that you can read if you're thinking about signing up. So our telephone support, check-in and chat, and companionship calls on the very left-hand side of the screen. Check-in and chat is really light. The volunteer calls that person once, never again. And we know there's people up and down the country picking up those telephone calls, having those friendly chats with people. Companionship calls is a series. So we ask you to call that person for 6 weeks, up to 3 times a week. And it's mutually agreed between you and the person that you're matched with. We see often actually 1 call a week can make a super difference to that person and gives you time to build up a little bit of rapport. It is a time limited service. So it's not the same as befriending that you might do through an organisation locally. It's got that end point for that relationship between you and the client. In telephone support for both of those two, they're referred by professionals, or the person can refer themselves. So if you know somebody who's lonely or isolated, they can ring up the support team and ask to begin those calls and to get somebody volunteering to speak to them. Or if they are digitally included and they use the internet, they can make a self-referral online form via our website. So worth knowing about as well in terms of people that you interact with. Friend, neighbour, your mum, Pat down the road, all those lovely people. Community response. So that's more place-based. That's in-person role. So it's a small shop or a large shop, essentially, is what it says on the tin. Something you can do at the corner shop or something that needs you to go up to the supermarket. Often used when people are being discharged from hospital and the team might think that they are short or without food, or if somebody is waiting well, so they're waiting to go and be admitted to hospital. And we know your outcomes from a planned operational procedure are much better if you've had good nutrition and hydration in advance of going into hospital. Pharmacy collection or delivery. So collecting a prescription from a community pharmacy, bobbing to Boots and taking it up to Bob's house. Also used if people need their spectacles, picking up from the opticians, hearing aid batteries, those kind of things. Again, useful for keeping people connected. If you're discharged from hospital and you've broken your glasses while you've been an inpatient, you're suddenly at home and you can't read the back of your packet, you can't read to do your crossword and keep yourself busy. We know that getting support to get your glasses fixed is actually much bigger than getting your glasses. And connect to an activity there at the bottom, the one I mentioned about getting people out and about. Driving support and driving support plus is that piece where we directly support the NHS. The hospitals can ask for volunteers to pick up a shift to take medicine to somebody who's just been discharged from hospital that day. It helps patients get home quicker and frees up beds so more patients can get admitted via A&E, a really important service. And site support is your stewarding at vaccination sites and those ambulance support pilots. Nothing down in Southwest at the minute, but I'm working on it. The yellow circles or ovals on there are tasks you can undertake just by completing a digital ID check. I signed up as a volunteer when I came to work on this programme. My digital ID check, the most tricky bit for me was dashing out to my car to get my driving licence out of my glove box. The digital ID check, you start through the Good Sam website and you are done and dusted in about 4.5 minutes. You take a photo of a government issued ID, doesn't have to be UK government issued. If you did have your ID from overseas, you take that photograph, you then take a selfie of your face using your phone camera, and the technology looks to see liveness. Does that face match that photo ID on your driving license? It has to be a selfie type video because it has to check that you're alive, so you're not comparing a photograph and defrauding. So those ID checked ones, if you've got to the end of the presentation this afternoon and think, yeah, I could give that a go, you could sign up as a volunteer this afternoon and be doing your first check-in and chat call at tea time tonight while you wait for your cottage pie to be ready. And I think that's a really fab thing about this programme and about this, a way to volunteer in a really flexible way. So our referrers see patients being supported, they see people being well, staying at home, not speaking to medical services that aren't necessary because it's a social need. They really value and see the huge benefits that volunteers make. Exactly the same as place-based volunteering, that it is part of feeling like a community. And why do volunteers do it? I'm speaking to the converted. You're already here. You already know what a fantastic feel-good aspect there is to volunteering. That sense that you've made a difference to somebody else makes us feel good. And it's okay to say that and to want more of that. It's okay to think, actually, I can give up 4 hours every Tuesday afternoon to go down to a local volunteering organisation, maybe helping a charity shop down on my high street. But I want a little bit more, but I can't fit that into my week. But once a month I could make a check-in and chat call, go on the app and have a nosy and get something done. And that's the joy of being able to do both. So, a couple of ticky boxes. In order to be an NHS and care volunteer responder, you need to be over 18. And that's just linked to the fact that these opportunities are remote and you don't have the lovely people at CAN to go in and speak to about them. So you need to be over 18 and you need to live in England because NHS England are funding it. You need a smartphone and you need to be able to download the Good Sam app from your Google Store or your Play Store. I mentioned before that digital ID check takes approximately 5 minutes and there's loads of help to get you through that if you do need it. After you've applied to be a volunteer, you'll be invited to a welcome webinar. It's about half an hour, runs on a session just like this, a chance to find out more about the programme, what the boundaries and limitations are of the roles, and to ask any questions you have. So there's about half an hour of talking like I'm doing today, and about half an hour of questions, which you don't have to stay for if you've got all the answers that you need. And then we really encourage you to get going and give it a go. So to get signed up, and once you're signed up, to undertake your first task. I always reckon a check-in and chat is a really great place to start. Often the people that you're calling want to tell their story, want to reminisce, want to talk about what's going out for them. And let's face it, there's always a bit of weather to talk about as an opener. We've had hailstones here today up in the Peak District. And I really like that about check-in and chat. You're ringing somebody from somewhere completely different in the country to you. And there's always that opener to talk about whether the leaves have started coming off the trees or whether they've bothered to put the bulbs in the garden yet. When I send the presentation round, the link will be on there about how to get to the volunteer application form to fill that in. I really wanted to highlight how much our equality, inclusion and diversity team do throughout volunteer responders, both in terms of making sure that we remove barriers for people who need support and how they can access the programme, but also for volunteers who may experience barriers to volunteering. And we often talk to people who place-based volunteering, or that same 4 hours every week, is tricky for them. If they're a carer to somebody else, or they're managing a long-term health condition and have fluctuating impairments, a programme like this gives that flexibility to do when you can and to take a break when you can't. We've got great inclusion materials and additional reading and training modules around protected characteristics and other bits and bobs, and I've popped the link on there so you can have a nosy when the presentation comes round. Support, I mentioned before, it's different, isn't it? It's digital, and we're a little bit more at arm's length. Our support team, open 7 days a week, there to be able to support volunteers, people who get support from this programme, and professional referrers. Monthly, learn more about webinars, a bit like today, where you can learn more about the specific tasks or activities, and a virtual coffee with our team once a month, where it's mics on, cameras on if you want. Come and ask us questions, come and chat about challenges you might have faced. Maybe you had a call with somebody who wasn't especially chatty, and share some top tips with other volunteers within the programme. Tons of stuff going on social media. The team have just started TikToking, but all the usual Facebook, Instagram, X and LinkedIn. And then regular newsletters to volunteers and top tips and emails directly to your inbox. Come out of that one. Let me stop sharing if I can work out how to do that. Amy, I'm not sure I can.
I can do it for you.
Has it gone?
Stop sharing. There you go.
Thank you so much, the glamorous assistant. That was a real whistle-stop tour. I've worked on this programme a little over 18 months, and it continues to expand and evolve and change. And that's about us meeting the needs of the day. That's about what's going on with the NHS. And we see, as we're coming into sort of winter and winter pressures, the squeeze on our health systems continues. And we also know that people's life circumstances, not just through cost of living, but also the impact of fuel payments and everything else. There's an awful lot of local stuff that needs to go on to support people. So I know it was a whistle-stop tour, but I'm more than happy to take any questions, either if you want to put your mics on, or if you want to write them in the chat if you feel more comfortable doing that, and Amy and I can have a read through.